It's been a bitter back and forth between the county's registrar of voters and the district attorney. The registrar, Rebecca Spencer, has accused District Attorney Mike Hestron of interfering with the 2020 election. But Hestron says the claims are unfounded. Peter Doubt spoke with him earlier today to hear what he calls a misunderstanding.
Mike, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
First off, tell us about this dispute between you and the County Registrar of Voters, Rebecca Spencer, over the security of ballots and her accusation that you showed, quote, unacceptable partisan behavior.
Okay, well, let me tell you my opinion on this dispute, this back and forth, is that it comes from a misunderstanding of the role of district attorney of my office as it relates to election integrity. Our role is completely reactive. And what I mean by that is we respond to citizen complaints as they come up. And I can tell you that, for example, back in 2016, we received numerous citizen complaints from Democrats, Republicans, and independents that they had their voter information changed in some way, that they're, prior to Election Day 2016, that unbeknownst to them and without their approval, their registration had been changed. So we opened an investigation into that. We looked into it. And we quickly found that it apparently did happen to several dozen voters in Riverside County in 2018, where we had numerous complaints that our county registrar of voter office was not correctly requiring ballot harvesters to identify themselves on the ballot. So again, we responded, we looked into it, and what we found was not widespread voter fraud, not at all. But what we did find was that our county registrar of voters was not requiring ballot harvesters to fill out the back of the ballot where they're required by law to identify themselves. Now, finally, in 2020 election, and it also happened in 2016, but we dealt with multiple complaints by voters of all parties about receiving multiple ballots. In 2016, we found that more than 70 people had attempted to vote twice. So what happened was they requested a mail-in ballot, received a mail-in ballot, you filled it out, signed it, sealed it, and either dropped it in the mail or brought it to a voter drop box. And then a couple days later, or a week later, or 2 weeks later, they would receive a new ballot. The vast majority of these voters were elderly. And so when they received the new ballot, they mistakenly assumed that their first ballot had been invalid or had been spoiled, or maybe they had filled it out wrong. So what did they do? They filled it out again, signed it, sealed it, dropped it off. Guess what? Now they voted twice. We found more than 70 people that did that. So that's in a nutshell what we've been doing. And unfortunately, some county officials don't like to be these things brought to their attention, but no county department or no county official is beyond scrutiny or questioning, and we're going to keep doing our job.
I want to ask you about some of her specific allegations. She
Sure.
alleges, among other things, that you demanded she remove a ballot drop box outside the registrar's headquarters in Riverside, allow undercover agents at polling places, and make her staff photograph the license plates of people who drop off multiple ballots but refuse to identify themselves. Is any of that remotely true?
All those things were taken out of context. We had a meeting and a conversation where we presented to the registrar of voters and our concerns about the fact that Riverside County was not requiring harvesters to properly fill out ballots. And in that conversation, Ms. Spencer's response was, well, what could we possibly do? And myself and one of my assistants simply threw out options. You could have people photograph it. You could do this. You could do that. We never ordered any of those things. We never said, oh, you've got to have undercover agents. None of that is true in that sense. So these were, for example, the help we offered. At one point, Ms. Spencer said, well, I don't have the resources to do these things, to safeguard, the ballots. And we said, well, we're glad to help. I'm sure other county workers, people from my office could help. She quickly said, you can't have law enforcement officers near ballots. And we said, no, of course, nobody would be there in uniform, but if you needed help in case, situation arose, we'd be glad to help. that's how it came up. So unfortunately, those comments are taken wildly out of context, and they're forming the basis of these accusations, which are not true in any shape or form.
Spencer also wrote to county officials, quote, "I should be able to do my job free of political intimidation, interference, and retaliation. And it has become abundantly clear that the inappropriate behavior and unlawful interference with my job duties and responsibilities will not stop." What do you think she meant by that?
I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I can tell you, for me, our office simply, as I said, we simply look into voter concerns and allegations as they come up. When we do so, we simply contact the ROV. And I'll be honest, our investigators work with members of the ROV to go through some of these issues as they come up around election time, and they work with them without a problem. So I'm not really sure what Ms. Spencer's referring to. To my knowledge, nobody has done anything to stop her from doing her job. In fact, we urge her to do her job. We urge her to, uphold the law and make sure that free and fair elections, that the public has the perception that we have free and fair elections. I think everybody in the county should want that. But by the way, all of for the last several years, all of the communications between my office, the district attorney's office, and the registrar of voters has been in email. So, harassing you, that would be written. If there was somehow harassing or threatening, that would all be in writing. And that's not what's happening. It's simply investigators asking, what about this case? Can you explain that? What about this case? How do we assure voters that their ballots are not being misused? And those are fair questions to ask. And by the way, we've been doing them privately behind the scenes, not drawing attention. We weren't the ones, or we never reached out and did press releases on these things. We just answer the questions as they come.
So then let me just ask you point blank, why do you think she is making these very serious allegations?
I don't know. I think you see the article that was written in the Press Enterprise. There's other allegations against county supervisors, against other people in public office. So I just don't know. I'm not the one to ask. I think that it's, it could be for a lot of reasons. Like I said, I think from my perspective, I think there's a misunderstanding of the district attorney's role, but I don't know exactly why.
But obviously you have to understand these accusations are very alarming for voters here in the county. So what is the message that you want people to hear, and why should they believe you versus the registrar?
Well, I mean, the district attorney's office has taken no actions whatsoever to in any way get involved in the handling of elections. We only look after the fact. So, we're not talking about us interfering in any current election. After the elections, we go back and look at what happened. And if there's a crime to be filed, we file a crime. If there's not a crime to be filed and we find a flaw or a potential vulnerability, we bring that to the attention of county officials that have the authority to run our elections. That's all we've ever done. And so I think on its face, our actions are appropriate. And we're going to continue to do that. When citizens bring a complaint to the district attorney's office, we look at them all. We can't, I don't have the luxury, nor do I think it's right to say, well, I'm going to look at some complaints, or I'm going to take some allegations of fraud or crime seriously, but I'm not going to look at others, especially when it involves, another county department. I don't want to do that. I don't want to embarrass the county in any way. That's not an appropriate way for a district attorney to do their job. I think the job of this office is to take all complaints, sift through them and get to the bottom of it as quickly as possible.
All right, Mike, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.